Hello and happy Bloomsday. I'm Judy Guston, Curator and Director of Collections at the Rosenbach. You may have wondered why it is we're here today, June 16th, to celebrate Bloomsday. Yes, it's the day on which this novel we're reading is set as the date of Leopold Bloom's walk around Dublin. But is that the only reason? Let's take a deeper look at the history of the book and at Joyce's personal history and find out more. Did this date have to be June 16th, 1904? The answer is not really, except that Joyce may have been late for a date. Take a look at this note card, a photo of which has been graciously provided by the Division of Rare and Manuscript Collections at the Library at Cornell University. This is Joyce himself writing to Nora Barnacle, the Dublin waitress he slimly missed seeing on June 15th, 1904, when he'd hoped to spend some time with her. As we learn, their first date, spent walking around Dublin, Ringsend more specifically, occurred on the next day, June 16th. Flash much further forward, and we see the two of them and their small family, Nora as Joyce's muse, traveling around Europe, with Joyce writing Ulysses. The Ulysses manuscript has been in the collection of the Rosenbach since Dr. Rosenbach purchased it at auction in 1924. The date of the Joyce's meeting and the fictional events of the novel are memorialized on a single page of the manuscript. Here is a picture of Wandering Rocks, page 12, which syncs with your Gobbler edition in this episode as line 376. The date can be seen at the middle of the manuscript page. As you know, Ulysses was published in 1922 by Sylvia Beach, the proprietor of Shakespeare & Company in Paris. If you want additional information about the Ulysses manuscript and its publication, there are a number of blog posts that offer further information on the Rosenbach's website and on our YouTube site associated with our program Ulysses Every Day. After the publication of Ulysses, Joyce's insider tribute to his meeting with Nora began to expand slightly, and the Joyces spent one early celebration with friends at the Paris Opera. Later, in 1924, while recovering from an eye operation, Joyce scrawled across a notebook, quote, "Today, 16 of June, 1924, 20 years after. Will anybody remember this date?" They did acknowledge that day, and several friends sent him a bouquet of white and blue hydrangeas, the colors of the 1922 first edition wrapper of Ulysses, on that very day. He also wrote to Harriet Shaw Weaver, one of his great patrons, a few days later on 27 June, noting, quote, "A group of people who observe what they call Bloom's Day," that's two words, Bloom's and Day, 16 June, end quote. This is what is believed to be the first mention of the potential for a celebration under the name we now use, even though the spelling is slightly different. This brings us to Joyce's first celebration of Bloomsday. After the publication in 1922, he became interested in a French translation. Long story short, it took 3 translators to make this a reality. Adrienne Monnier, a French bookseller, writer, and publisher, and another woman, like Sylvia Beach, who brought Joyce's books into being, published the French translation. To celebrate the publication and the 25th anniversary of Ulysses, she chartered a bus and invited notable guests, including Joyce himself, Sylvia Beach, and Samuel Beckett, to a luncheon at a restaurant named the Leopold outside Versailles. Although it was held on June 27th, the date of the publication of the French translation, this event in 1929 is often pointed to as the first celebration of Bloomsday. After this event, others began to crop up sporadically. The first held in Ireland didn't occur until the 1950s. The first scholarly gathering around Ulysses happened in the 1960s. And we can trace the beginnings of gatherings more like ours and the New York version with readings in the 80s and 90s. But now Bloomsdays cover the globe, and we're so happy to have you as part of ours at the Rosenbach. We hope to see you in person on Delancey Place next year. Happy Bloomsday.